Welcome back to Talk Jamaica here on Talk Jamaica Radio. We're streaming live on talkjamaicaradio.com and also on blogtalkradio.com/ Talk Jamaica Radio. My name is Sanjay Lewis.
Good afternoon again, listeners. My name is Ricardo Brooks. The storm surrounding Jamaicans for Justice appears to be calming. We refuse to believe, though, that such an eminent advocacy group stature is beyond repair, and we know that supporters and even critics of JFJ share this belief. The man tasked with the unenviable job of steering the JFJ ship is, at this point, is Dr. Barry Wade, interim board chair of the 15-year-old Jamaicans for Justice. Dr. Wade now joins us. Good afternoon, Dr. Wade.
Good afternoon. Let me say that you're coming in a little bit low in volume, and if I miss anything you say, I'll have to ask you to repeat.
All right. Am I any clearer now?
Yes, let's try with this.
All right. All right. Now, I want to start by asking you, Dr. Wade, a lot of persons have said that in order to be a successful advocacy group, there needs to be trust. People need to trust you. Yes? And they said that the recent incident surrounding JFJ has damaged that trust, and it will be hard to repair it. Will JFJ be okay going forward?
Yes, I'm absolutely certain of that. Let me say that the membership of Jamaicans for Justice is a very strong one. It might not be a very large one, but it is a very strong one made up of people who've been involved in human rights and other civic issues for many years. And so we're very clear not only what our mandate is, but what is required to execute that mandate. So yes, we feel very strong about that. We also feel that the fallout which has occurred in recent times has been a lot as a result of a lot of misinformation in the public domain, and we're setting about to clarify, to straighten, to correct the misinformation that is out there. So we feel very positive about that.
Dr. Wade, let me backtrack a bit, because my understanding is there was an extraordinary meeting that was called to set up this interim. Who called for this extraordinary meeting, and who chaired the meeting?
Okay, well, we followed what the articles of Memorandum of Association of the organization clearly sets out, and that is that when the board falls below 3 members, or even before then, the remaining members have the power, the authority to co-opt to the board to make it a board of 7 members or more. What had happened is that with the resignations, the remaining board members sought to co-opt, and they did this at an extraordinary general meeting, and 8 new members were co-opted to bring the board strength up to 10, and I was one of them. This is well within the authority given to the board, and we followed that scrupulously. So that's how come a new board, as it were, was set up. The board is interim because we can only serve until the next annual general meeting. We can't serve beyond that, at which time there must be an election of new members.
When is the AGM?
Well, that is not yet decided. Normally it's in March or April of the year, but it can be called earlier, and that is one of the matters that we will have to decide when we will call the annual general meeting.
Okay. Beverly, in a letter of the Gleaner on August 4th, had a few things to say, Dr. Wade, about JFJ. Ms. Sinclair said that Dr. Carolyn Gomes and Susan Goff went up to the platform and took over the meeting, and after which the handpicked set of persons was said to be the new board members. How do you respond to this?
Well, that must be written by somebody who had a very creative imagination. First of all, there is no record of that person being at the meeting, and every person at the meeting was required to register. So we have no record of that individual being at the meeting. Secondly, their account is totally false, absolutely false. And one, there's not only how false it is, but why it is so false. It would seem as though there's some mischief afoot.
All right.
We categorically refute the allegations in that letter.
But are you familiar with the name Beverly Sinclair any at all?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
And we have no such person among our membership.
And then she also said that Section 2F3 of your Constitution states that the board shall consist of no fewer than 7 persons. Therefore, new elections should have been held at the recent JFJ Extraordinary General Meeting to select a new board of directors to direct the affairs of JFJ. And she said that this did not happen. Legally, are you on some footing as an interim?
Absolutely sound footing, and that is, if you check with our response in the Daily Gleaner of today, we have set out in explicit terms the legal requirements, and you will see there. So, but let me say this, that we followed scrupulously the conditions set down in the articles and memoranda, and the remaining board members were the ones who co-opted to the board. We could not force ourselves. And it also, at an extraordinary general meeting, there cannot be elections. Elections have to be held following a very strict protocol of notice of a meeting, of a annual general meeting, of call for nominations, and then elections, properly constituted elections. None of that was possible at an extraordinary general meeting. What happened there was a co-option to the board by the remaining board members.
I'm going to a question that I had asked Dr. Wade, because I'm trying to understand. Is it that you are the one who called for this extraordinary meeting? Who was the mastermind, so to speak, behind it?
Okay. Several members, more than 20, wrote to the board then in place requiring a meeting, an extraordinary general meeting. That's also called from in our memorandum and association. The board then called the meeting. They set the time, the date, the time, and the place. So that was a meeting of the board, the existing board, with members. It was chaired, the meeting was chaired by a member of the board, the existing board, and the business of the meeting proceeded. At the meeting, the members stated quite clearly that they were not satisfied with the position the board had taken with regards to the children's homes. And that was discussed at length. After which, the acting chairman of the meeting then requested what the members wished, the expression of the members wished, and the members indicated that they wished that members should be co-opted to the board according to the articles and memoranda. And that was agreed, and that was done.
All right, Dr. Wade, in the public domain, there's a perception that there was a schism of sorts between what was being called the old guard and the new guard. A sort of schism.
Well, I'm losing you there, but anyway, I hear you mention old guard and new guard. Yeah, we don't use that terminology. What we're saying is that there were differences of opinion as to how to deal with the controversy. Some felt that we should be silent and the matter would go away. Others felt that no, we should be more proactive in putting out the real information, the true information. And that was essentially the split that took place in the board between those who felt that the board should not respond and should keep a low key and the matter would go away, and those who felt no, we should be more vocal, we should be proactive and state what the real facts surrounding the children's homes issue.
So at no point was there disagreement that the content of the material that was presented was what was improper? There was no disagreement on that?
Well, the board rushed to make an apology, apparently without knowing or without studying closely what was the content. Once the criticism was made, the board sort of said, well, listen, if there is inappropriate material, we apologize. But on closer look, there was no inappropriate material in the content. And so there was really nothing to apologize about. And so the old board had taken a line of, as it were, of least resistance, rather than us coming out and saying, no, there is nothing inappropriate, and there is nothing to apologize about. But the stance it took was the very opposite. And so the membership at large was quite dissatisfied with this stand by the board. And this is what prompted the members to ask the board to give first an explanation and to listen to what the members said.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you spoke earlier about members of the board wanting to remain silent, while others said that, the group should have been more forceful. Do you then think that some members of the old board were then too weak for the advocacy task?
Were what? Sorry?
Were perhaps too weak for the advocacy task?
I'm sorry, I'm losing you. Could you just state it again clearly for me? Let me make sure I respond to what you are asking.
Fine. I'm saying you mentioned that some members of the board were hesitant, yes, to come out publicly when the controversy started to surround the organization. I'm saying then, is it fair to conclude that those members of the board were perhaps too weak or not up to the task of advocacy?
Essentially that, yes, we feel that the board took a wrong turn, that the stance was wrong for whatever reason. We know that they received some advice to the fact that they should remain silent. The membership disagreed quite strongly with that stance, but that was the stance that the board took. We feel that they did this in error.
Yeah.
Dr. Wade, tell me, what is your strategic vision for Resurgent JFJ, especially if you are, or you should be appointed as the permanent chair?
Well, Jamaica for Justice has to make very clear what its mandate is. The mandate has not changed, but over time I think people have lost an understanding of what that mandate is. For a number of reasons. One, maybe we have not been proactive enough in informing the public. Two, we may have depended too much on the traditional media, who have not always carried what we are saying. Press releases that we sent in are not carried, and so on and so forth. And thirdly, I think we need to be more active in social media, which sends out our message and sends it out quickly and clearly without interference from people who might have a different agenda. You know more than as a journalist that communications and methods of communication are very important. I don't think as an organization we have kept up with the modern methods of communication, and this is one of the reasons I think where we're finding ourselves in this situation. We must now use the modern methods of communication to get our message out there and to let the public know what we are doing. We have not eased up. We have not shifted from what we're doing from our very start. But we have not got the message out there effectively. And I think we have to find out how to do that. So I think communications is one of the biggest challenges that the organization will now face. And we are looking at that very keenly.
All right, Dr. Wade, on the point of messaging, you stated recently that, quote, sodomy is a real issue for kids.
Yes.
Do you believe that forms a part of human rights advocacy? And can you explain to the Jamaican, or listeners, Jamaican people, how that forms a part of human rights advocacy?
Surely. From its very inception, Jamaicans for Justice has taken on the cause of children's rights and have spoken out very strongly about the abuse that takes place of children, both in the society at large and also in children's homes, where there is ample evidence, full evidence, coming out over and over again that in the children's homes there is a huge problem of the sexual predation on the children. And Jamaicans for Justice, as I said, has been involved in this. The opportunity arose for Jamaicans for Justice to deal with this directly in the children's homes with the approval and with the consent and even invitation of the children's homes to deal with this. Because we know that children have been running away from the homes. Children have eventually committed suicide and all of that as a result of sexual predation. So a part of defending children's rights must be defending their the understanding and the protection of their sexual beings. This is something that we've been involved with for some time. What the opportunity arose now was to do some actual training to implement that. And we did this with the approval and I said with the partial invitation of the children's homes themselves. So we were invited to come into the children's homes to give this. Let me go on to say also that the program that we ran in the children's homes was a human rights program, of which the explicit sexual activity was just one of 8 modules delivered to the children. It had to do with their human rights, how they understood their human rights, how they could protect themselves, how they could report, how they could avoid, and so on and so forth. Only in one of 8 modules were the methods of predation actually dealt with. So it was a human rights program. It wasn't just a sexual program, and a part of that was the fact that children in the children's homes, many children are suffering from HIV, and it was also linked with an HIV prevention effort. So yes, the program was a human rights program.
Let me ask you, Dr. Wade, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think it would have been so controversial had issues like sodomy and oral sex not been a part of the manual at all?
No. Let me tell you that we used government of Jamaica material. Government of Jamaica material is freely given out in high schools. So there has not been controversy about that in the past. We use material that was in the public domain. We didn't invent material, or we didn't go in with new material. This is material produced by the government of Jamaica, the Ministry of Health, and there has been no outcry of controversy about the Ministry of Materials. So one might ask, why is there an outcry when Jamaicans for Justice uses the same material, same approach in the children's homes? And mark you, we were not giving this out to children at large, such as the ministry does. We were giving us out to students handpicked by the children's homes who felt needed this particular intervention. We did not choose the children. It was the homes that chose the children. And we presented this material in the presence and with the cooperation of caregivers in the children's homes. This was all agreed beforehand, and this is how it was implemented.
But Dr. Wade, you mentioned earlier that sodomy is a real issue, right?
Yes.
How then are you? Because based on what you're saying, it's as if you're going to repackage this information to put back in the children's home. How are you going to get public approval and also cooperation from the government? Because once the issue of sodomy comes into the mix, it's as if everybody takes this approach as if they don't want to touch that issue any at all, even though it's a real issue.
No. Yes, it's a real issue among our children, and we cannot either deny it or we can run from it. In my own personal experience outside of Jamaicans for Justice, I have been involved in a case in which a 2-3-year-old was sodomized by a teenager. We know this is happening. We know that young girls are becoming pregnant at ages 12, 13, 14. I have had personal experience of this. I've had a personal experience of a young girl, 14-year-old, being given out to her mother's boyfriends for sex for income, transactional sex of one kind or another. And many of the children in the children's home come into the children's homes with these experiences. So they are already initiated into the whole aspect of predation, in the whole aspect of abuse, with not only their bodies being violated, but their mental and emotional state being violated. These are facts of life. And the children's homes are aware of this. And this is why they welcome the program. In fact, they actually recommended, in one particular case, some other children's homes which needed a similar intervention. So this was done entirely in a collaborative measure. And we will have to address, we the society will have to address how we deal with this. We can't deal with it either by denying or by minimizing. It's a reality that we have to deal with.
But Dr. Wade, wouldn't it have been better then? Because this is the first I am certainly hearing this side of the story. Wouldn't it have been better from the information brought to the media that Jamaicans for Justice made it very clear that this is something that is endorsed by the government, this is something that the children ask for? Wouldn't it have been better to say it that way, in opposed to apologizing and back and forth?
Well, this is exactly why the membership disagreed and was dissatisfied with the line that the previous board had taken. Mm-hmm. And we could not understand why the previous board would want to keep silence on such an important matter and not let the public know what the true facts were. And this is exactly the whole reason for the fallout. The resignation first of some members of the board and then others, bringing the board down from about 10 or 12, I don't remember exactly how many, to two remaining members. This was, in fact, the fallout. And we in Jamaicans for Justice have always tried to be open with our information and to reach the public. I've already told you, I've already said that we have to look at our communication methods, strategies and whatnot. But to be silent, an advocacy group to be silent, is certainly not the way we see Jamaicans for Justice going forward. Mm-hmm. We have to be vocal. We have to be careful what we say. We have to make sure that what we say is factual and not just opinionated, and so on and so forth. And we have to get the message out. We failed to do this in this particular regard, and now this is one of the things that the new board is charged with, getting this message out.
Right. The acting public defender came out swinging just this week against NGOs, and he even mentioned JFJ by name as not the best defenders of human rights in Jamaica, despite their contribution, right? And he believes that protection of human rights should be state-sponsored because NGOs are not accountable to the Jamaican people. How do you respond to the views?
Well, there's a measure of truth, and we never set out to be the prime advocate group for human rights in Jamaica. We've never claimed that. But I think the public has concluded that in the absence of other strong voices, we have become that. Let me say that he is speaking as the public defender, mm-hmm. which is, of course, a government institution, a government organization. Well, the public also is not satisfied, I think, that organization, that agency has operated at an optimum level, and has also called for the public defender to be stronger. We have no problem at all with the government having a human rights agency, none at all. But we do believe that there is a very strong place for private advocacy groups as well. So we can work with that. That's not a problem. So his call, I think, is not to Jamaicans for Justice. His call is to the government to set up their own human rights agencies and to be effective in them. And I presume that the Office of the Public Defender may be the nascent organization which gives rise to this. We have no problem with that at all.
Dr. Wade, do you have a timeline yet set for the appointment of a new executive director?
No, not yet. This is something the board has to look at. We are at the present time just really reorganizing ourselves, getting our priorities straight. We can't speak to that yet. Okay. But I will tell you.
What should we expect?
I have to say this. that the members have volunteered and are coming in and carrying out many functions that an executive director would. So the organization continues in its activities under the volunteer service of its members. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, very strong people, very forceful, very efficient, competent.
As an interim board going forward until the AGM, what can the Jamaican people expect from your leadership of JFJ?
Well, as I have mentioned before, I think that they can and should expect more and clearer communications from the organization about what it is doing. Jamaicans for Justice runs about 8 or 10 programs on an ongoing basis. The two that really gets the highlights are with regards to state brutality and more recently the children. But there are many other programs that Jamaicans for Justice are involved in, and the public at large don't know about these. For example, the public at large don't know that we offer human rights training to police recruits at the police training school, and we have done this for a number of years. We teach the courses in human rights right within the police force. This I'm sure is not known by the public at large. Also, we do training in communities, in social and economic justice, formal training sessions. I don't think the public recognizes or knows this. Then we have worked very assiduously on the access to information law, public information, and we represent groups who want access to public information and are finding it difficult to go through the process. We also work in the coroner's courts. Last year we had 144 cases before the coroner's court. I don't think the public knows this. And in terms of advocacy on behalf of individuals who've suffered injustices, in the last year, over 300 cases that we represented. So these things are not widely known, and we have to look into ourselves and say, well, how can we inform the public about what we're really doing, and get away from just the sensational or the things that are highlighted in the press. So these are our challenges, real challenges. We recognize this, and we are committed to doing something about it.
All right, Dr. Wade, we thank you. It's really refreshing hearing from JFJ again, and you have a hard task to bring it back to where it was, but we have all confidence in you. So we want to wish you all the best, and we'll be reading and watching what's happening with JFJ.
Well, thank you very much. We're not flinching from the challenges ahead. We recognize them. But as I said, we're a strong organization. We have a strong track record, and we're going to go forward with faith and hope in the organization and the Jamaican people to support us. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much.